Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the very last edition of the Opinioneers for 2024. You never know, we might come back next year. If you haven't been good for Santa, that is, we will come back. So yes, hopefully everybody watching.
The thing is, Derek, I will still have opinions despite the Christmas holidays, whether you like it or not.
I suppose we have to video them and put them somewhere. So yes,
we have to.
Just in case if anybody doesn't know who we are, and I'll try my tongue twister where I say I'm Derek Cheshire, Chameleonomist. See, I did it. Innovationist, visiting professor, speaker, author and radio presenter. And my Christmas elf here is Stuart Webb. Christmas elf, yes. Strategist, fractional chief operating officer. I like that. Scientific value builder and all-round business genius. Watch the head. And of course, we would like, well, you should know, everybody should know what we're talking about. We're talking about trust and innovation. So if you have any opinions on that matter, and if Robin said he was going to come along, if he has, I'm sure we'll hear from him at some point. But please put them in the comments, and we'll pick up on them. And I did foolishly say that if anybody could get trust, innovation, and Christmas in a sensible way, not just put the words in the comments, there might be a little prize. Well, I'm going to give away a little prize. If Stuart's got a little prize, he can give one away as well. I don't know.
I'm sure I can find a copy.
Mine will be a workshop-y sort of prize. So
I'm sure I could do something like that.
But the Christmas baubles indicate that it's nearly Christmas, and I firmly believe that Christmas doesn't start until Noddy says so. There you go. Christmas has begun. So anyway, trust and innovation. Yeah, big topic. Trust comes in everywhere. And yeah, one thing I always remember from doing some of my, I suppose, innovation mapping, if you like, is trust, advice, and communications networks. The communications networks look like the structure chart, and they're absolutely effing useless. The trust and advice networks are more like the connections on a social media chart. They tend to be the ones where the useful stuff spreads around the company. And that encompasses everybody, rather than, because the communications charts seem to, they're just mappings of hierarchy, and they map out control and who's a manager and who's isn't, all the rest of it. Trust and advice networks absolutely don't. So we sort of get an inkling as to why they're important there. But if you haven't got any trust at all, you can't innovate. Surely.
Indeed, Derek, and this topic sort of started to become very real for me when I had discussions with people who were being asked to return to work from the into the office from, the last 3-4 years were starting in January to March 2020, when people were asked to work from home. They came to the conclusion the boss trusts me. He has put his trust on me to keep things running whilst I'm working from home, and he knows I'll do a good job. Now we're 3-4 years later on, and a lot of people are under pressure to get people back into the office. Now we could go into the reasons why we're going back into the office in another one of these Opinioneers, but the key thing that came to me was the question that people are now asking is, why doesn't the boss trust me anymore? And if you're going into the office with that in the back of your head, even if you're subconsciously thinking about it, you are in the process of already deciding you're not going to engage in innovation, because you have decided you are not going to put forward your ideas because the boss doesn't trust you. So why would he trust you to come up with a new way of doing something? Or you've got a new idea for a product. Why would the boss trust you with that new product if he doesn't trust you to work from home? And there are organizations out there. I was talking to one just recently. They have asked their employees to take 3 days a year. It's only 3 days a year, but 3 days a year to block out their calendar and say that they're not working on anything but innovative ideas. Now, whether that be with groups of people, whatever. But do you know where they do that innovation? They do it outside of the office, because they want to be able to go somewhere where they're trusted to do something different. Now, for me, the drive to get people to return to office is a lack of trust, and I think it's damaging many organizations' ability to remain innovative.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one. I know. So, oh boy, when energy bills started going up, there was a rush to return to the office, wasn't there? I don't know if it was like if it induced a false trust with bosses or whatever, but people thought, well, my house costs a lot to heat. I'll go back to the office and let the boss pay. And it creates a false sense of security, which I suppose we all should have seen coming. But there's two aspects to the trust, isn't there? One is what it stops you doing. It can stop you innovating because, and the other one, it's a bit like, well, I suppose it is an investment in a way.
It is,
but you can think of, if you don't invest in this, what are the costs of? And if you lose that trust, if you don't have people doing stuff where they're supposed to do it, if they don't trust each other, they don't trust the boss doesn't trust them, what will you lose out on? And I don't think people even look as far as that, or bosses don't look as far as that. What is it you would miss out on? That would make a fine topic for an audit as well.
I think, and Peter has come up with, I think an element of the lack of trust is very much down to not communicating in both directions. I think you have a point, Peter. I actually do think that there is a lack of communication going on here, but that communication has to involve the fact that when you do get people returning to the office, it has to be with good reason, rather than just we want to be able to see what you're up to. So whether that be, as with the organisation that I was talking about, where they bring people together specifically to do innovation and they want them to do it in a collaborative way, what I see is an awful lot of organisations just saying, and it's been said, we've seen it in the press, we want people back in the office, and it's not being explained why, and it engenders a feeling that people, because they feel they're being watched. And I think that stifles their ability to come up with innovative new ideas, because nobody wants to come up with an innovative idea if they're not going to be trusted.
No, indeed. And again, also picking up Peter's point there, it's not just communication. Well, it is communication, but it's the quality of that. I mean, you could work in completely separate area. I mean, you're standing in your office. I'm sitting in a tree with snowflakes. We're in completely different.
I didn't want to call you a snowflake, Derek.
Indeed. But the point is, I mean, I can communicate with you. You can communicate with me. I can tell you to f off, and you'll trust me that I really mean it when I say f off. So the problem is, it's the words, the message, and it's the context as well.
Yeah, it is the words and the context.
As I described it once to somebody who just couldn't get it, was I can walk in the front door and tell my wife, go and fetch my slippers, and she would see it as a bit of a joke. Maybe she'd take pity on me and actually get them. But if somebody strange was to walk in the door and take them off their shoes and say, go and get me a pair of slippers, they'd probably get hit round the back of the head with a rolling pin. So there's, this context is very important. So even if you are a sort of empathetic manager, or you were when you had people face to face, you probably still have to change your method of communication if you're dealing a lot with people working remotely.
True, absolutely true. And coming back to the innovation is another one of those communications, isn't it? I remember running innovation hub gathering exercises where we were gathering new innovative ideas, and people had to be trusted that when they came up with a report that they wanted to cut, when they came up with process steps that they wanted to eliminate because they didn't believe they'd added value, they had to trust, and we had to trust them, that they knew the reasons why we were asking the question, and they were giving an idea, giving giving a suggestion, that wasn't going to cause issues further down the line. And we had to trust that people actually understood the context in which we were sort of trying to cut the waste. And often those innovation ideas, which are at best are I wouldn't call them guesses, but they are nearly always the start of an experiment. People have to trust that everybody's doing it in good faith. And when there's a lack of trust, it does cause additional work, and it does cause additional effort. We trust is a huge thing in the office. It's a huge thing across work, and it is, I think, still at the very basis of an innovation culture.
It is. I mean, when I run workshops before, it didn't stop things happening, but it was one of the things that you had to sort of, lubricate. You had the system beforehand, was that people needed permission from the boss to play because they're not used to being told to play, which is fair enough. But once they get that idea, then they will quite happily do what they need to do. But it does in the same way that the employees need to be able to trust, their superior. Well, I call them superiors. The people who call themselves managers, shall we say? That's a different way of putting it. So the managers really do need to be able to trust employees, and it's very difficult, because if I was running a massive great, a Google design sprint type of thing, saying we were doing it remotely and we had 100 people scattered to the winds, you actually need to have some rules, and people then have got to trust you and know why you're doing it. You can't be open about every single aspect, which is where the trust comes in. It becomes almost recursive, doesn't it? You've got to trust in order to be able to trust, and if at some point if someone's thrown the spanner in the works, it just stops it dead.
Yeah, it does. And we're coming back again, I think, to communication. Communication without trust is, I think, it is at best difficult. When communicating, I often say to managers when I'm in workshops with them and things like this, the one thing that I want you to do is assume positive intent. If somebody is coming up with a suggestion, assume they're doing it with a positive, I want to help attitude. Because if you make the assumption, either they don't know what they're talking about, or they've misunderstood, and you've assumed any form of negative intent, it kills the conversation straight off. So always assume positive intent. Always assume that somebody's coming to you with an idea, with a suggestion, with a thought, and they have got the very best intentions at heart.
Or you can play around with the concepts like, I don't know, reverse brainstorming. So
reverse brainstorming is an interesting technique at this, isn't it?
It is indeed, and you can use those ideas in other places. But if you have, you can have people who are just a bit suspicious. You can have people that are just downright mood hoovers. but if you make people come up with negative ideas because that's the way they are, they can help you without realizing it.
I have not heard the term mood hoover before. I'm sorry that I laughed at that one, but I've not come across a mood hoover. I came across the concept recently. Somebody called somebody a knowledge sucker, but a mood hoover is a new one on me. I do like knowledge sucker as well, though. So those two new phrases that I will be putting into my vocabulary soon after this live stream has finished.
Indeed, I would. But yeah, it takes people a while to get going. But some people, they sit there and they say, "I'm a positive person. I can't do this." And you just give them enough time, and everybody's as good as everyone else as being negative. Just that some people do it naturally.
So where are we coming to the conclusion on this one, Derek? Do we think that innovation is, I mean, it's a communication, it's a trust. Where do we think that we advise businesses, organizations, business owners, chief executives next year? Where do they need to be putting their effort into making the most for their innovation for 2025? Is it through changing that trust metric within the organization, changing the communication metric, or are there other things that they need to do in order to make innovation really the truth center of their organization?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways. There's lots of ways to do it. Some are sort of encompass others. I mean, it's a cultural, behavioural thing. Is the if you get that right, then the rest is easy. The thing is, exchanging ideas, feeding back on ideas, building on ideas is all a communications thing. I think if you went to somebody and said, "Here, we want to look at your trust networks and analyze them," they might hit you around the head with a wet kipper and tell you to go away. But if you try to sort of look at the behaviors and attitudes and work out what they would get as a result of changing to that model, I think people will be a bit more. But these changes, they don't take a lot of doing. They don't take a lot of doing. You can, if you're very. I mean, there was a model I put forward once. They didn't take up on it, but it would have worked very nicely for a company that we talked about using. Unfortunately, we called them change agents, which has other connotations.
Yeah, it does.
But if you're tossing pebbles or boulders or whatever size rocks you like into a pond, then the ripples spread out. So if you have the right people doing the right things in the right places, you don't need to put everybody on a training course or assemble them in the hangar to speak to them or whatever. All you need to do is sow the seeds and make sure that these things are evidenced.
Yeah, great.
That's what the boss talks about communication. Well, the boss is seen to communicate. He doesn't stand there and say, "Oh, I'm a great communicator." Almost to the tune of "I'm a lumberjack" there. I didn't realize I was doing that. But yeah, it's very, very easy to do. And once you start getting that, then all these other things you can throw in about, things that employees need to do, things that management or whatever need to do. You can start throwing those in as well. It doesn't have to cost. And once people see these things demonstrated, you talk about transparency. If somebody from the production line, say, goes to somebody who they consider to be higher up and gives them an idea, and then they see it's implemented or it's actually just taken to a board discussion or whatever it happens to be, they'll do it again.
Agreed.
And they'll tell their mates that they've done it and what happened.
I will add at the moment to what you've just said, just the one thing, which is in business, start by assuming that two things have to happen in your daily life. One, make more assumptions that the people that you're dealing with are actually working with you, not against you. I know that's not true of everybody, but I think it's true of most. And the other thing is that just because you've said it doesn't mean they've heard it. So you need to say it again. I think it was Winston Churchill that said, if for somebody to hear you say it once, you need to have communicated it 8 times. You may not need to repeat it 8 times, quite that many times, but you certainly need to make sure that what you're saying is communicated more than you expect, because you don't get the response on the first time.
Well, I'll also say it's marketing, isn't it?
It is exactly marketing. I'd also say this: if you're in a work situation at the moment, you need to have both ears open and be listening, because active listening skills, I don't think, are something which I have seen an awful lot of recently. People are not really hearing. There are noises, but we're not listening to each other. And I think that is a symptom of an anti-active listening culture. We need to be listening out for what's being said and for what's going on around us. And exercising your active listening skills can be quite tough, but it's well worth doing.
And it's also a symptom of a slightly lazy culture, which means
Don't know what you mean. I'm not lazy.
Which means that Well, that's what's allowed in social media. That's what's allowed
Absolutely, it has.
fake news and deep fakes in, because
Absolutely, yeah.
people aren't listening. They aren't questioning.
That's correct.
They're not trying to. Well, they're not just listening to what's being presented to them. But I also think if the people who manage the company say things like, "We are going to assume positive intent, and we're going to demonstrate this by," and they get that message across, then that's also another thing that their workforce can pick up on. Because if some teams working one way and some teams are working another way, which is against that corporate culture, if you like, then then hopefully their peers will say, "Yeah, they were being positive. Why aren't you being positive?" But all these things need constant reinforcing. And I think when you haven't got a physical workforce in front of you, I think people just don't bother with that. They basically revert to just doing what's in their job description.
Agreed.
And that's it. So
Derek, we are rapidly getting towards the point at which
we're getting to that point. It's been it's been so much fun, and nobody's trying to get a prize out of us, have they? Which is a shame, but there we go.
I'm sure people are thinking about the ways to do it.
I'm sure people are thinking about it, but there we go. So that's it for now. Trust. Get on with it.
Are we going to promise to be back in 2025, Derek, or have we decided we have no more opinions to give?
I think we've got plenty of opinions. I think in which case the next date, assuming neither of us is flying around the North Pole delivering presents and crash landing, would be January the 10th. Are you here?
I'm looking forward to it enormously already.
In which case, we will mark it in the diary. We will be back, and for all those people, certainly Pete, you never know anybody else. Thanks to them for listening, and we'll see. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody, and we'll see you in 2025.
Wow.
I think that's the next year, isn't it?
Wow.
Yeah. Okay then. Bye for now.
See you soon.